It's really an honor to introduce Ward and to have him here at New College. Ward Churchill of the Ketowah Band Cherokee is best known as one of North America's most prolific and frequently cited radical scholars. He's a prominent and involved activist, a highly sought public lecturer, and lest that give you the wrong impression, he's also a son of the working class, a Vietnam vet, a survivor of the 1970s American Indian movement and the FBI repression against it. Churchill is a professor of ethnic studies and the coordinator of the American Indian Studies program at the University of Colorado Boulder. And he is the past national spokesman for the Leonard Peltier Defense Committee. His books, of which there are literally too many to list right now, include Agents of Repression, the COINTELPRO Papers, Indians Are Us, A Little Matter of Genocide, Fantasies of the Master Race, Since Predator Came, From a Native Son, Struggles for the Land, Cages of Steel, and of course, Pacifism as Pathology. Penny Schoner, who helped organize this, sends that book into prison a lot, and we determined that it gets past the censors because the first word is pacifism, and most of the censors never get beyond that to pathology, which they would probably be suspicious of. Throughout his career, Professor Churchill's work is focused primarily on the dynamic of repression and resistance that characterizes the 500-year-long war of Europeans and white Americans against the first peoples of this hemisphere. This is a war that has been brutal and treacherous and genocidal, as you all know, just as it is an unfinished war that continues into the present, as the case of Peltier illustrates. It is also a war fought not just with guns and disease, but also on the terrain of language, bureaucracies, Disney cartoons, and the New Age commercialism of Native American spirituality, all of which Churchill's work addresses. And on all of these fronts, Native Americans resist. And foremost among them is the activist, scholar, and right-on comrade, our guest, Ward Churchill.
CO, Osiju. Hello, my relatives. It's good to see you here. My name, as I was introduced, my colonial name is Ward Churchill. I'm a Ketowah Band Cherokee of the Bear Clan, but because both peoples are matrilineal, and therefore our children would have been of my wife's people, I am also affiliated with the Lynx Clan, or Piju, or the Ojibwe of Onigamine and Couchiching. And my name there, actually there are two, Kines, meaning the little golden eagle, the first given name, and a more recent one which will probably surprise people familiar with my work and a little contrary to my own self-concept in certain ways, is Kijinabe, which means the kind-hearted man. I bring you greetings in any event from the elders of the Lynx Clan, of the Ketowah Band of Cherokee, my mother's people, the elders of the Colorado chapter of the American Indian Movement, of which I'm a part, and from Gworthy Las, otherwise known as Leonard Peltier, who tonight, as I speak to you, and as I assume all of you know, continues to sit in a cage at the federal prison, Leavenworth, Kansas. Not for anything anyone, including his prosecutor, at any point in the past 15 years has been prepared to say they actually believe he did, but rather as a symbol of the arbitrary ability of the federal government of the United States to repress the legitimate aspirations of indigenous people within its claimed boundaries to liberation. This is the anniversary of the firefight that occurred at Oglala Village on the Pine Ridge Reservation in 1975, which, according to the official histories, 2 FBI agents were murdered by Leonard Peltier. That's the official incantation, although, as I indicated, even the prosecutor's no longer prepared to say that he believes it's been established that that occurred in that fashion, that Leonard indeed murdered anyone. And often forgotten, a member of the American Indian Movement by the name of Joe Stunts Kilswright was also killed They convened an investigation, unprecedented in its intensity in the history of the FBI, to investigate what they called the reservation murders, and that meant the two agents. Nobody ever investigated the death of Joe Stuntz, who was buried alongside another casualty of the counterinsurgency war that was conducted against the American Indian movement and traditional resistance of the Oglala Lakota on Pine Ridge Reservation during the mid-1970s, Anime Aquash. Both are buried on the Jumping Bull property where the firefight occurred. So before going further, I'd like to ask for a moment of silence in respect and memory of those two fatalities and the well over 60 other American Indian people who died during the course of that counterinsurgency campaign in the 3-year period of 1973-76. We have to remember those who have struggled and sacrificed. We have to remember where it is we've come from in order to understand where it is that we find ourselves, where it is that we are. And only in understanding where we are can we plot a course to a better future for our coming generations. These things are connected. And it's that understanding that motivated Leonard, it's motivated others, and has to do with the formation of his case. Because Leonard Peltier is not simply a political prisoner, although he is that. Leonard is a prisoner of war. He is a prisoner of the longest ongoing war in this hemisphere. Mention was made by Christian in his introduction of the struggle having at this point lasted a little over 500 years. That's 500 years of conquest, colonization, and genocide. It's also 500 years of consistent resistance on the part of those who were targeted for that. I've been asked to explain the case of Leonard Peltier, to contextualize, to establish a frame of reference, to allow not only the specific situation, but its significance, not only to Leonard and those close to Leonard or to American Indian people, but to everyone. And in order to do that, I really need to go at two lines of history that feed into the particular event that occurred on June 26th and the outcome, which is Leonard being where he is. Each of these lines of history could in themselves encompass not only a lecture, but a whole series of lectures. I've devoted entire courses to both lines. So I'm going to have to try to summarize in a very cursory or thumbnail fashion, and to try to draw out the interactivity of these things and to make them relate to other people, because they're not simply Indian issues, they're not simply American Indian movement issues, they're not simply any specific group's issues. They are issues that impact, have ramifications for every single individual, not only, I would argue, in the United States, but given the United States' ability at the present time to project itself, impose itself as a dominating force in the world, it affects ultimately everybody on the planet. And I don't believe I'm overstating the case, but I'm going to try to draw this out. It's going to take me a while in some sort of a coherent sense, and then maybe we can have some interaction, a little bit of rough and tumble, get into things that I'm going to necessarily, in the course of trying to collapse this into very compact parameters, gloss over, miss, things that are of interest to you or things that are left unclear.